Hi everyone, I'm Denise Gray, your councilwoman for the 6th District. Today I have the pleasure of conversing with David O'Neill, our local property valuation administrator, or PVA, who plays a vital role in shaping our community's financial landscape. After receiving your property value assessments earlier this year, several of you have expressed curiosity about how the PVA's office works. I believe it is important to have a transparent and accessible government, and this council comment aims to give you insights you deserve. Welcome, David.
Well, good morning. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Well, it's my pleasure. We've known each other for many years, but I think this is the first time we've sat side by side since your election. So
Yes.
Congratulations. I think your constituents are going to be very well served.
Thank you so
welcome
much.
aboard.
Thank you. That means so much. So, can you, what does PVA stand for, and what is it that you do?
Well, one misconception is the PVA office is not a function of local government. We are a state agency, completely independent from city government. So we just happen to be, the law says that fiscal court in each county will provide office space for a PVA. So we're in the city building, we're in the Phoenix building, 6th floor where the PVA office is, but we're not actually a city agency. So it's our job to make sure that the state property tax laws are administered fairly. We're not a policy shop. We don't determine what the policies are. The state legislature does that, and they're set out in statute, mostly KRS Chapter 132. We just make sure that they're administered fairly, that everybody gets treated the same, that you're treated exactly the same as your neighbor is. So that's our job in a nutshell, determine what the fair cash value of the property is. We don't collect the taxes. We have no interest whatsoever in whether or not the tax revenues increase or decrease. That's not our job, not our role. And that's also why the PVA office is elected instead of appointed, because we're not answerable to any county judge executives or council or mayor or school board administrators who are looking to increase revenues. You know, we're not subject to any of that pressure whatsoever. We report directly to the taxpayers and the voters.
That's wonderful, because my office received numerous calls.
I'm sure it did. Yeah, I'm sure all 12 of you, those of you
Yes.
who represent districts,
Right.
stay very busy.
A little busy.
Just like we do. You know, we're on a tax calendar. We do the same process every year. We shoot for assessment notices to hit mailboxes on April 15th every year. So April 15th, we're all geared up, ready for the phones to start ringing off the hook, and they do. And we know that you all, council members, receive phone calls as well. And so we're all about wanting to make sure you're educated on what it is that we do here, so that you can answer some questions, but most of the questions you should just refer the caller back to our office.
And I do.
And you do.
And I do.
Yes.
So, how do you determine the assessed property, or the assessed value of a property for taxation purposes?
Well,
Could you walk me through that
I
process?
can, and it's a little bit different depending on the types of property. So residential property is a little bit different than commercial property and industrial property, but we'll stick to residential
Yeah.
since that's what most of your viewers are going to be interested in. And it's based almost entirely on comparable sales. So comparable sale would be houses that sell preferably in your immediate neighborhood. The closer to your house, the better. But sometimes we do have to go outside the immediate subdivision or neighborhood to find legitimate comparable sales. But the market has been so hot in not just Lexington, but it's really been fired up everywhere. You know, we'll have 8,000 sales a year in Fayette County, so we don't usually have to try very hard to find comparable sales. There's sales everywhere.
Yeah, and right now in my district, very few homes are for sale in parts of my district. So.
You know, that's a good point. So, you know, we got a couple of different factors at play and why that is. So most people know that the feds have been raising interest rates, and there's an assumption out there that that's causing home prices to go down, but it's not. It's actually just the opposite. And it's the reason it's the opposite is nobody wants to buy a new house or refinance their old house because they want to keep that old interest rate locked in. So therefore there are fewer houses coming on the market, and just the laws of supply and demand. Demand's still high, supply is now artificially low, prices go up. So the interest rates is actually having the opposite effect than what most people think it is.
Wow, that's That's something I didn't know. So thank you for clarifying that for many of us. So how do you stay up to date on market trends and changes in property values within the community?
Well, within the community, we get copies of every deed that's put to record in the county clerk's office every day. And with the market as hot as it is, we'll get maybe 50 of those a day. 50 houses a day will sell in Lexington. And so we get the deeds, because part of our job is to maintain a database of property ownership to make sure that the tax bill gets mailed to the right person. So, and then we also will use the purchase price of the property. In most cases, that will become the new assessed value. And then we also will use that sale to help determine what the values of the rest of the houses in the neighborhood are. So we study those sales, we go on the multiple listing service, we look at the details, we see whether or not the property has been remodeled lately, confirm that we agree on how many bathrooms it has, how much square footage it has. And then we have a fairly sophisticated computer software that helps us make adjustments. So if you have a house that's 1,000 square feet and a house next door to you has 1,100 square feet, but we want to use that sale to help determine what the value of your house is, our computer software will help us make changes for differences in number of bathrooms, differences in the square footage, whether it has a basement or not, whether or not there's finished square footage in the basement. So, the short answer to your question is comparable sales and sophisticated computer software and a good training program for the staff.
Wonderful. And so property assessments can sometimes be a point of contention among homeowners. How do you handle disputes or appeals related to the property valuations?
Well, there's a couple of ways, and I want to show you a copy of an assessment notice that we send out, and I'm going to brag just a little bit because I want to point out a couple of features on here. So we've won an international award for this assessment notice, and the reason why is because of the information that we provide property owners. Namely, we list the 5 specific comparable sales that were used to determine the value. So there's not another PVA office in the world that we're aware of that does that. And also on the back of the notice, is a sales map of the neighborhood, and we can hold, I believe the number is 36 sales. So we put the most recent 36 sales in the immediate neighborhood, because the average person is going to know whether or not the house next door to them sold, but they're not going to know this kind of detail. So we found that this helps answer an awful lot of questions when they get the notice, and believe me, especially right now, there's a bit of shock value. My house used to be assessed at 150 and now it's 220. How in the world is that possible? Well, first of all, we only reassess property once every 4 years. And for the last several years, property values, median sale prices have been going up between 6 and 12% a year. So if you only do that once every 4 years, 10% times 4, that's a 40% potential increase from one reassessment to the next. And so hopefully when they see these sales and they see all of these houses up and down the street are selling for roughly what I'm now saying your house is assessed at. And then I also put on here the purchase price and what I had it assessed for at the time it sold, so you can see that it's
the increase.
These increases. This is why that you're seeing these increases. So we shoot for getting these we reassess a fourth of the county once every 4 years. So we reassess a fourth of the county every year, but that fourth gets assessed once every 4 years. So I've got a map behind us, and hopefully the viewers can see that, but you don't need to see it in detail. But you can see the different colors are individual neighborhoods, and we have the county divided into about 300 neighborhoods, and we reassess a fourth of those every year. So it's not necessarily a geographic quadrant, it's neighborhoods here and there. And so when we choose the comparable sales that we use, we try to stay within the neighborhood. But sometimes, if it's a neighborhood, say for example, a neighborhood like maybe Masterson Station, where a lot of the houses look very similar, that it's pretty easy to stay within the neighborhood for all your comps because there's not that many different model homes within that neighborhood. But other neighborhoods that are more custom built houses, where you might not have a single other house in the entire neighborhood that's exactly like yours, will have to look elsewhere in the county for a similar size property and in a similar neighborhood, similar in terms of desirability. So we take all of those into account. And I know sometimes we'll hear from taxpayers, well, you didn't even use comps on my street. Well, comp doesn't mean identical. Comp means comparable, and we're capable of making adjustments for, where things are not identical.
And a big part of my stance is always being transparent, and I am loving the transparency in this the only one.
The only one that we're aware of, and that's the reason that we got the award for it.
Award-winning PVA's office, evidently.
Award-winning assessment notices.
Okay.
So, when I first developed this and we first mailed them out, I was so excited. Oh, they're going to love these, and it's got all these cool features. But no, it's still a tax increase.
Yes, it is.
When people open it. So I didn't quite get the reaction from the public I was hoping for, but I know that they serve a good purpose. People
didn't applaud you, I guess. But so we're running out of time right now, but is there any other information that the viewers should know about?
Well, even going back beyond the assessment notices, the website has always been very well received by the public and recognized, as kind of a leader in making and transparency and making information available. So you can log into the website, FayettePVA.com, look up any property in the county. You can see who owns it. You can see all kinds of details about, how big it is. Information on the parcel itself. What's the zoning? What district is it in? You can drill down into some really rich mapping features and turn layers off and on. Like you can see which school zones, which elementary school or middle school is assigned to that particular house. You can click on and off the FEMA floodplain map. There's just a lot of detail on there. Again, and it's not something that you see on just the random property assessor's website. So we hope people will get out there and use that. We also administer the homestead exemption. So for viewers who are 65 years of age or older, you can go on our website and find an application, and it gives you a little discount on your property taxes once you reach the age of 65 or you're receiving some type of disability. And it's the year you turn 65. So in January of the year you turn 65, get the application in here so we can make sure that it's on that year's tax bill. You only get it once, so whichever spouse gets there first wins. And you can only have it on one place. So if you're a snowbird and you're already taking it in Florida, you might want to leave it on in Florida and just keep the house in Lexington at full value.
Excellent. That is some wonderful information that I know that most residents of Lexington didn't know about. So I thank you for your input.
Can I touch on one other thing really quick? And I know we're running out of time, but again, the assessment notices hit the mailboxes around April the 15th. And I think we do a pretty good job and we study these sales, but we can't know everything about every house because we don't do full-blown appraisals. So when we say on the assessment notice, if you don't think the assessment on your property is fair, go through the protest process, we mean it. We encourage people to go through the protest process.
And what is that process?
So go onto our website, FayettePVA.com. There's a link to initiate a protest, and you fill out some information, and then somebody in this office will get back to you. And if we go through that process and you still don't think we landed at a fair place, you can file a formal appeal with the county clerk's office, and that's where we are right now. We're just about to head into local board of tax appeals hearings. So we encourage people. I consider this an iterative, collaborative process. We take our best estimate of what your property value is, but again, we can't know everything about every property. So come forward with information you want to share, and we'll work together to make sure your assessment's correct.
That's wonderful. So that you're transparent and you are accessible, and the information is out there for residents to receive on the PVA's website.
Yes, ma'am.
Love it.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
And you, the residents of the 6th District, thank you for tuning in for, once again, another council comment coming from me, Denise Gray, your councilwoman of the 6th District. And I will see you soon.